They waited for Earth's surrender. Instead, the Shadow Fleet was unleashed. The quiet before. Commander Sarah pressed her palm against the cold metal wall of the detention facility, feeling the vibrations of the massive dreadnought humming through the hull. 3 months. 3 months since the hegemony had cornered what remained of Earth's scattered fleet near the system. 3 months since they'd been taken prisoner. The cell was clean, almost comfortable by human standards. They weren't cruel, just methodical. They fed their prisoners, provided medical care, and waited, always waiting for the inevitable surrender transmission from Earth. Still no word from home. Sarah turned to see her cellmate, approaching with 2 cups of the bitter equivalent of coffee. The alien's 4 arms moved with practiced grace, his scaled green skin catching the artificial light. Despite being a former hegemony officer himself, a defector who'd helped Earth forces for 2 years before their capture, he'd been thrown in with the human prisoners. Nothing, Sarah said, accepting the cup. Admiral thinks they're still holding out, but, she shrugged, how long can they last? His large, amber eyes studied her face. You don't know your own species very well, do you? What do you mean? The hegemony has conquered 47 different civilizations. 46 of them surrendered when faced with overwhelming force. They calculated the odds, weighed their options, and chose survival over resistance. He paused, taking a sip. But humans are different. Sarah laughed bitterly, different enough to get ourselves extinct. Before could answer, the lights in their section suddenly dimmed to emergency levels. A low alarm began to pulse, not the sharp klaxon of combat alert, but something else. Something Sarah had never heard before. What is that? She asked. Scales had gone pale. Fleet Admiral summons, all senior staff to the command deck immediately. His voice carried a tremor she'd never heard before. In my 30 years of service, I've only heard that signal twice. The cell door hissed open. 2 guards stood outside, their expressions unreadable behind their ceremonial masks. Commander, you are requested on the command deck, one of them said in accented English. Sarah exchanged glances with, requested. Fleet Admiral or wishes to speak with you personally, as senior human officer. The walk through the dreadnought's corridors felt like a death march. Other prisoners, human and alien alike, watched from behind energy barriers as Sarah passed. Some looked hopeful, others resigned. A few seemed afraid, though she couldn't understand why. The command deck was a cathedral of alien technology, with towering displays showing tactical information in symbols Sarah only partly understood. At its center stood Fleet Admiral, or his imposing 8-foot frame draped in the ceremonial armor of a hegemony fleet commander. Unlike his subordinates, he wore no mask, revealing a face that was both reptilian and oddly noble. Commander, he said, his voice carrying easily across the vast space, thank you for accepting my invitation. Did I have a choice? A sound that might have been laughter rumbled from his throat. Always direct, you humans, I respect that. He gestured to the main display where Earth hung like a blue marble against the black of space. Your has been stubborn. Sarah's heart clenched. Earth looked so small from here, so vulnerable. What do you mean? 3 months ago, we delivered our ultimatum. Surrender your military forces, accept integration into the hegemony, and your species would be spared. We gave them time to consider, time to be reasonable. And they have responded. Or's massive clawed hand activated a holographic display. A human face appeared, Admiral Martinez, Earth's highest-ranking naval officer. Sarah had served under her briefly years ago. The recording began to play. Martinez's voice was steady, uncompromising. Fleet Admiral or of the hegemony, we have received your ultimatum. After careful consideration by the United Earth Defense Council, our response is as follows. No. The recording continued, but Sarah barely heard the rest. The defiant words washed over her like a wave. Earth hadn't surrendered, they were still fighting. Remarkable, Or said, watching Sarah's reaction. Most species beg, they offer tribute, territory, servitude, anything to avoid annihilation, but Admiral Martinez. He paused, the recording on Martinez's face. She simply said no. So what now? Sarah asked, though she dreaded the answer. Now we make an example of your world. The hegemony cannot appear weak. Other species watch, waiting to see if defiance will be tolerated. Or's amber eyes fixed on Sarah. In 72 hours, our main battle fleet will begin orbital bombardment. Your cities will burn. Your civilization will end. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. You're going to commit genocide. I prefer to call it education for the galaxy's other species. Sarah's fists clenched. And you brought me here to watch, to break me before you break my world. No, Commander, I brought you here because I am curious. Or leaned forward, his massive presence suddenly focused entirely on her. What do you think Admiral Martinez knows that I do not? The question caught Sarah off guard. What do you mean? In my experience, only two types of leaders refuse surrender when facing extinction: fools and those who possess information their enemies lack. His eyes narrowed. Admiral Martinez did not strike me as a fool. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. There was something in his tone, something that suggested doubt, but doubt about what? Maybe she's counting on something you can't see, Sarah said carefully. Such as? Before Sarah could answer, a junior officer burst onto the command deck, speaking rapidly in the language. Sarah caught only fragments, something about long-range sensors and unknown contacts. Or's expression changed immediately. Show me. The main display shifted to show a tactical readout of the outer system. For several seconds, there was nothing but empty space and the distant points of light that marked planets and asteroids. Then Sarah saw them, dozens of new contacts, appearing at the very edge of sensor range. Where did they come from? Or demanded. Unknown, Fleet Admiral. They weren't there during the last sensor sweep, and then, the officer gestured helplessly. They simply appeared. Sarah stared at the display, her mind racing. The contacts were too far away to identify, but something about their positioning seemed familiar. They weren't arranged randomly. There was a pattern, a formation she almost recognized. How many? Or asked. 147 vessels, Fleet Admiral, unknown configuration. Or was silent for a long moment, studying the display. When he spoke, his voice carried a note Sarah had never heard from before: uncertainty. It seems, Commander, that we are about to discover what Admiral Martinez was counting on. Ghosts in the black. The command deck had fallen into tense silence. Officers moved between stations with mechanical precision, but Sarah could sense the undercurrent of unease that rippled through the alien crew. Even or seemed different, his usual confident bearing replaced by something approaching wariness. Analysis, he commanded, his voice cutting through the quiet. A tall, thin officer stepped forward, her scaled hands dancing over a holographic interface. The contacts are maintaining position at the edge of our sensor range. No active scanning, no communications. There, just watching. Ship classifications. Unknown, the profiles don't match any vessel in our databases. The energy signatures are... She paused, her large eyes flickering with confusion. They're very faint, Fleet Admiral, almost as if they're running on minimal power. Sarah studied the tactical display, her engineering background automatically analyzing the formation. The unknown ships were positioned in a perfect sphere around the system, equidistant from each other and maintaining precise station. It was a formation that required incredible coordination and discipline. Could they be automated? Another officer suggested. Possible, or replied, but his tone suggested he didn't believe it. What about their approach vector? Any indication of where they came from? That's unusual, Fleet Admiral. Based on their current positions, they would have had to jump in simultaneously from multiple vectors. The coordination required would be... The officer struggled for words. Unprecedented. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Simultaneous jumps from multiple vectors. She'd heard theoretical discussions about such maneuvers at the Naval Academy, but they'd been dismissed as impossible. The computational requirements alone would be staggering. Unless... Fleet Admiral, she said, stepping forward. Or's amber eyes fixed on her. Yes, Commander. May I see the sensor logs from when they appeared? Several officers looked shocked that a prisoner would dare make such a request, but Or merely gestured to the tactical display. Show her. The display shifted, showing a time-compressed version of the sensor sweep. For hours, the edge of the system remained empty. Then, in the span of exactly 3 seconds, 147 contacts materialized simultaneously. They didn't jump in, Sarah whispered. What? Or leaned forward. Sarah's mind was racing, pieces of an impossible puzzle clicking together. They didn't jump in from outside the system. They were already here. Impossible, our sensors. Your sensors detected them when they wanted to be detected. Sarah turned to face or directly. Fleet Admiral, what do you know about Earth's deep space research programs? The massive alien was silent for several heartbeats. Intelligence suggests your species has been working on advanced stealth technologies, cloaking systems, sensor dampening, but nothing that could hide an entire fleet. Not hide, Sarah corrected, phase. The temperature on the command deck seemed to drop several degrees. Every officer was now staring at Sarah, their expressions ranging from disbelief to something approaching fear. Phase shift technology is theoretical, Or said slowly. The energy requirements alone would explain why they've been silent for 3 months, Sarah continued, her confidence growing. No communications, no support missions, no reinforcements. Earth wasn't stalling for time, Fleet Admiral. They were waiting for their ace in the hole to get into position. You're suggesting that these vessels have been in system, undetected for 3 months. Sarah nodded. Longer, probably. How long has your fleet been here? 4 months. Then they were here before you arrived, waiting. Or was quiet for a long moment, his strategic mind clearly working through the implications. Even if such technology exists, why reveal themselves now? Our fleet outnumbers them 6-1. Before Sarah could answer, alarms began wailing throughout the command deck. The tactical display flashed red as new information flooded in. Fleet Admiral, the sensor officer's voice cracked with strain. The unknown contacts, they're moving. The display shifted to real-time tracking. The mysterious vessels were breaking from their spherical formation, accelerating toward the fleet with impossible coordination. But something was wrong with their approach. They're not taking attack vectors, Sarah observed. She was right. Instead of the aggressive attack formations she'd expect from a human fleet, the unknown ships were moving in a complex, almost dance-like pattern. Weaving between asteroids, using gravitational slings around moons, approaching from angles that made no tactical sense. What are they doing? Or demanded. Sarah watched the pattern unfold, her engineer's mind trying to decode the movement. Then, suddenly, she understood. They're not attacking, she breathed. They're positioning. For what? The answer came in the form of a transmission that suddenly flooded all frequencies. Admiral Martinez's voice, crystal clear and carrying the authority of someone who held all the cards. Fleet Admiral, or, I trust you've noticed our shadow fleet by now. The command deck fell silent, except for the soft hum of alien technology. I assume Commander is with you. We've been tracking her biosignature. Hello, Sarah. Sorry for the wait. Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. Martinez had known. Somehow she'd known exactly where Sarah was. The transmission continued. By now, you've realized these aren't ordinary ships. For the past 18 months, Earth's best scientists have been working on something we call the Prometheus Project. Phase shift technology, invisible to conventional sensors, powered by zero-point energy extraction. Or's claws dug into the command podium. What do you want, Admiral? What I've always wanted, the safety of my species. But now I'm prepared to offer you something your hegemony has never encountered before. A choice. The tactical display updated, showing the Shadow fleet ships had reached their final positions. They formed a 3-dimensional cage around the fleet, with gaps barely wide enough for a single ship to pass through. You see, Fleet Admiral, your ships are now surrounded by vessels that exist partially outside normal spacetime. They can't be targeted by conventional weapons, but they can certainly target you. Each of my Shadow ships carries enough firepower to level a continent. Sarah watched Or's face, seeing something she'd never expected to see in a commander, genuine fear. However, Martinez's voice continued, I'm not interested in genocide. That's your game, not ours. So here's your choice. You can order your fleet to attack Earth and find out what happens when you try to fight ghosts. Or. The pause stretched for what felt like an eternity. You can accept my counteroffer, an exchange. Or found his voice. What kind of exchange? Your fleet and the lives of every under your command, in return for something far more valuable than Earth's surrender. Which is? Sarah held her breath, waiting for the answer that would determine the fate of 2 civilizations. An alliance fleet admiral, because there's something coming that makes your hegemony look like a children's playground squabble. And when it arrives, humanity and the people are going to need each other. The command deck fell into stunned silence. Sarah stared at the tactical display, at the ghostly ships that had materialized from nowhere, at the impossible technology that had shifted the balance of power in an instant. Earth hadn't just refused to surrender, they'd turned the tables entirely. But Martinez's words echoed in Sarah's mind. Something coming that makes your hegemony look like a children's playground squabble. What could be worse than an interstellar empire bent on conquest? The deeper dark. Fleet Admiral stood motionless for nearly a full minute, his massive frame casting a long shadow across the command deck. Sarah watched his face, seeing the calculations running behind his amber eyes. Pride warred with pragmatism, imperial doctrine clashed with survival instinct. "Explain this. Alliance," he finally said, his voice carefully controlled. Admiral Martinez's voice crackled through the comm system. "Not over open channels, Fleet Admiral, and not while your weapons are trained on Earth. Stand down to defensive positions, recall your bombardment squadrons, and I'll come aboard your flagship personally." "You would put yourself at our mercy." "Would I?" Martinez's tone carried a hint of amusement. "Take a look at your tactical display again, Fleet Admiral. Look very carefully at the positions of my shadow fleet." Sarah followed his gaze to the main screen. At first, the formation looked the same, the mysterious human ships maintaining their cage-like positions around the fleet. But as she studied the pattern more closely, she began to see something that made her blood run cold. The shadow fleet wasn't just surrounding or ships. They were positioned to cut off every possible escape route, not just from the system, but from any vector that might lead them back toward hegemony space. It was a trap of staggering complexity, executed with mathematical precision. "You see it now?" Martinez continued. "Every ship in your fleet is exactly where I need it to be. This entire encounter has been choreographed, Fleet Admiral. From the moment you entered this system, you've been dancing to humanity's tune." Or's claws scraped against the metal podium. "Impossible. Our route here was classified, known only to the High Command." "Known to High Command, yes. But did you really think your defector was the only who'd grown tired of endless conquest?" Martinez's voice carried a note of something that might have been pity. "Fleet Admiral, your empire has cracks, deep ones, and humanity has learned to slip through them." Sarah felt the pieces clicking together in her mind. Hadn't been the only defector. There had been others, feeding information to Earth for months or even years. The ambush the capture of Earth's scattered fleet, it had all been orchestrated. A massive deception designed to draw the fleet exactly where humanity wanted them. "The prisoners," she whispered. Or turned to look at her. "What?" "The human prisoners you've been holding. We weren't captured by accident, were we? We were bait." Martinez's voice confirmed her suspicions. "Commander has always been quick to see the bigger picture. Yes, Sarah, you and your fellow officers volunteered for the most dangerous mission in human history. Living bait, to ensure the fleet would stay in system long enough for the Shadow Fleet to get into position." Sarah felt a mixture of pride and horror. 3 months of imprisonment, 3 months of believing Earth was defenseless, and all along she'd been part of a plan so audacious it belief. "All senior staff to stations," Or commanded. "Defensive formations, stand-down bombardment protocols." As officers moved to comply, Sarah caught a glimpse of something unexpected in the Fleet Admiral's expression. Relief. The mighty conqueror was actually relieved to have an excuse not to destroy Earth. "Your shuttle will be cleared for approach," Or announced. "But Admiral Martinez, if this is deception." "If this was deception, Fleet Admiral, you'd already be dead." 20 minutes later, Sarah found herself in the Dreadnought's primary docking bay, watching as a sleek human shuttle touched down on the alien deck. The craft was unlike any Earth vessel she'd seen before. Its hull seemed to shimmer and shift, as if it wasn't quite solid. Admiral Martinez emerged wearing a simple naval uniform, flanked by 2 officers Sarah didn't recognize. She was smaller than Sarah remembered, barely 5.5 feet tall, but her presence filled the enormous hangar bay like a force of nature. "Sarah," she said, stepping forward with a genuine smile. "Good to see you in one piece." "Admiral," Sarah snapped to attention, but Martinez waved the formality away. "Save it for later. Right now, we have bigger problems than military protocol. Or approached, his massive form dwarfing the human delegation. Admiral Martinez, you wish to discuss terms. Terms? Martinez laughed. Fleet Admiral, I think you misunderstand the situation. I'm not here to negotiate humanity's surrender to your hegemony. I'm here to offer the people a chance to survive what's coming. And what precisely is coming? Martinez gestured to one of her officers, who activated a holographic projector. The image that appeared above the device made everyone in the hangar bay step back in alarm. It showed a section of space Sarah didn't recognize, distant stars arranged in unfamiliar patterns. But what dominated the display was a massive structure, easily the size of a small moon, constructed from materials that seemed to absorb light itself. 3 weeks ago, one of our deep space monitoring stations detected this, Martinez said. It appeared at the edge of the Andromeda contact zone, approximately 47 light-years from Earth. Sarah stared at the image. The structure was clearly artificial, but its design followed no architectural principles she recognized. It seemed to fold in on itself, creating impossible geometries that hurt to look at directly. What is it? Or asked. We call them devourers, Martinez replied. We've encountered them once before, about 2 years ago, when they consumed the entire 442 system. Not just the inhabited planets, everything. The star, the planets, the asteroids. They left behind nothing but empty space. That's impossible, one of our officers protested. The energy requirements to consume a star are apparently well within their capabilities, Martinez cut him off. But here's the interesting part. They're not random. They're methodical. They consume systems in a specific pattern, moving from the galactic rim toward the core, based on their current trajectory and speed. The hologram shifted, showing a map of local space with a red line marking the Devourer's projected path. They'll reach Earth in 18 months, Martinez continued. Space in 24. The core worlds of the hegemony have perhaps 30 months before they're consumed. The hangar bay fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Sarah watched Or's face, seeing the moment when the implications truly hit him. The hegemony, with all its military might and conquered worlds, was as helpless as humanity against this threat. You're proposing an alliance against these devourers, Or said slowly. I'm proposing survival, Martinez corrected. The Shadow Fleet technology is just the beginning. Humanity has been developing weapons and strategies specifically designed to fight enemies that exist outside normal physical laws. But we need resources, industrial capacity, and, she paused, looking directly at Sarah. We need allies who understand the true cost of war. Sarah felt something shift in her understanding of the situation. This wasn't just about Earth and the hegemony anymore. There was a threat out there that made their conflict look trivial by comparison. What exactly are you offering? Or asked. Martinez smiled, and Sarah recognized the expression she'd worn during the most dangerous mission briefings of the war. A chance to rewrite the rules of warfare itself, Fleet Admiral. But first, I need to show you something that will change everything you think you know about humanity. She nodded to her second officer, who activated another device. This time, the hologram showed Earth, but not the Earth Sarah remembered. The planet was surrounded by massive orbital installations, and the space around it crawled with vessels unlike anything she'd ever seen. Welcome to Project Exodus, Fleet Admiral, and Sarah, welcome to humanity's real fleet. The price of tomorrow. Sarah stared at the holographic display in stunned silence. Earth was transformed, surrounded by orbital installations that dwarfed anything humanity had built before. Massive ring structures encircled the planet at various altitudes, connected by what looked like space elevators that stretched from the surface to stations beyond the moon's orbit. When, she whispered. Construction began 6 months after first contact with the hegemony, Admiral Martinez explained. We knew this conflict was coming, just as we knew it would be a distraction from the real threat, so we prepared for both. Or moved closer to the hologram, his massive frame casting shadows across the display. The industrial capacity required for such construction, it should have taken decades. It would have, using conventional methods, Martinez agreed. But humanity has never been particularly conventional. When faced with extinction, we tend to get creative. The display zoomed in on one of the orbital rings, revealing its structure in detail. Sarah gasped as she recognized the design principles. It wasn't just a space station. It was a massive manufacturing facility. Thousands of automated systems worked in perfect synchronization, assembling something that looked like spacecraft, but followed no design philosophy she'd ever seen. Zero-point energy extraction, Martinez continued. Molecular-level construction, automated systems that can build more automated systems. We turned Earth's entire industrial capacity toward a single goal, building a fleet capable of fighting the Devourers. And the Shadow Fleet was just a prototype, Sarah realized. The Shadow Fleet was a proof of concept. These, Martinez gestured to the new ships being assembled in the orbital facilities, are the real weapons. Or studied the display with a strategist's eye. How many? Currently, about 8,000 vessels completed, with production capacity for roughly 500 more per week. By the time the Devourers reach Earth, we expect to have approximately 50,000 ships ready for deployment. The number hit Sarah like a physical blow. 50,000 ships. Earth's entire pre-war navy had numbered less than 300 vessels. The crews alone, or began. Fully automated, Martinez interrupted. AI-controlled with human oversight. We learned that lesson from you, Fleet Admiral. Organic crews are a vulnerability in the kind of warfare we're facing. Sarah watched or processed this information, seeing the moment when he understood the true scope of what humanity had achieved. The hegemony had conquered 47 civilizations through superior numbers and conventional tactics. Humanity was preparing to fight a war that would make those conquests look like skirmishes. What do you want from the hegemony? Or asked finally. Martinez deactivated the hologram and looked directly at the alien commander. Everything. The single word hung in the air like a challenge. Your industrial capacity, your technical knowledge, your strategic expertise, most importantly, your people. Martinez's voice softened slightly. Fleet Admiral, the Devourers don't care about your empire's politics or humanity's independence. They're going to consume everything in this galaxy unless we stop them. That requires resources beyond what any single species can provide. You're asking us to abandon our conquest of Earth. I'm asking you to help us save Earth and every other world in their path. Sarah watched the exchange, recognizing the delicate balance Martinez was trying to maintain. She was offering partnership, not submission, but the power differential was clear. Humanity had moved beyond the need for surrender or conquest. They were thinking on a scale that made imperial politics irrelevant. There's something else, Martinez continued. Something you need to understand about the Devourers before you make your decision. She reactivated the holographic display, this time showing a detailed analysis of the structure they'd observed. The impossible geometries were highlighted, with data streams indicating various theoretical analyses. We've been studying the scan data from our deep space monitoring stations. The Devourers aren't just consuming matter for energy. They're doing something else, something worse. Worse than destroying entire solar systems? Or asked. They're learning. The temperature in the hangar bay seemed to drop several degrees. Every system they consume, every civilization they encounter, they analyze and incorporate. The structure you saw, it's larger now than when we first detected it, not just in size but in complexity. They're adapting, improving, becoming more efficient at consumption. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's climate control. You're saying they get stronger with each victory. Exponentially stronger. The first Devourer we encountered took 6 months to fully consume the system. The second one, and yes, there are at least 2 now, processed an uninhabited system in less than 3 weeks. Martinez paused, letting the implications sink in. By the time they reach inhabited space, they'll be consuming entire civilizations in a matter of days, unless we stop them first. Or was silent for a long moment, his strategic mind clearly working through scenarios and possibilities. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone making a decision that would define his species' future. What would this alliance entail? Full military cooperation, shared technology, joint command structure. Martinez's tone became businesslike. Your fleet would be integrated with Earth's forces under unified command. Your industrial worlds would be converted to Devourer-specific production. Your people would be relocated to defensive positions behind the front lines. Under human command. Under joint command. Admiral, I'm not trying to conquer the hegemony. I'm trying to save it. Sarah could see or struggling with the decision. Everything in culture and military doctrine pushed against accepting subordination to another species, but the alternative was extinction. I would need to consult with the High Command, he said finally. Martinez shook her head. There isn't time. The Devourers are accelerating. Our latest projections suggest they'll reach the outer colonies 18 months earlier than we initially calculated. Then what do you propose? That you make the decision, right here, right now. You're the senior hegemony commander in this region. Your word carries enough authority to bind your people to an alliance. Martinez stepped closer to the massive alien. But I need more than military cooperation, Fleet Admiral. I need proof that can work with humans as equals, not conquered subjects. What kind of proof? Martinez turned to Sarah. Commander will be our liaison. She'll work directly with your staff to coordinate the integration of our forces. If a human officer can earn the respect and cooperation of warriors, then maybe this alliance has a chance. Sarah felt her heart skip. Admiral, I'm not sure I'm qualified. You're perfect for the job, Martinez cut her off. You've already spent 3 months earning their respect as a prisoner. Now let's see what you can accomplish as an ally. Or looked at Sarah with an unreadable expression. The commander has shown remarkable resilience during her captivity, but to work as equals. We'll require adjustments from both our species, Martinez finished. But the alternative is watching our civilizations die. The choice is yours, Fleet Admiral, partner with humanity or face the Devourers alone. Sarah watched Or's face, seeing the moment when pride gave way to pragmatism. The commander straightened to his full imposing height, then did something that shocked everyone present. He extended his massive clawed hand toward Martinez in the human gesture of agreement. Very well, Admiral, we have an alliance. As the two commanders shook hands, Sarah felt history pivoting around them. But she also felt a growing dread. An alliance was just the beginning. The real challenge would be preparing two radically different civilizations to fight an enemy that comprehension. And time was running out faster than anyone realized. Integration protocol. 3 days later, Sarah found herself standing in what used to be the Dreadnought's war room, watching as human and alien officers worked side by side for the first time in either species' history. The transformation had been remarkable and remarkably difficult. The power distribution networks are incompatible, Lieutenant Commander James Park was explaining to an engineer named. Human ships run on focused plasma conduits, but your systems use distributed energy webs. We can't just plug our weapons into your power grid. His forearms gestured in what Sarah had learned was frustration. Then, how do we integrate Shadow Fleet technology with hegemony vessels? We don't, Park replied. We build new ships using hybrid designs. The time requirements are manageable if we use the orbital manufacturing facilities. Sarah stepped forward, a holographic tablet in her hands showing preliminary design schematics. I've been working with both engineering teams on this. Instead of trying to retrofit existing vessels, we create standardized hull configurations that can accommodate both power systems. She activated the hologram, showing a sleek vessel that combined the angular efficiency of human design with the flowing curves of architecture. It looked alien to both species, but somehow right. The basic frame uses metallurgy. Your hull materials are 30% stronger than ours. But the internal systems follow human modular principles, so components can be swapped out or upgraded quickly. Studied the design with professional interest. The weapon mounts, they're positioned for your phase shift technology. And your plasma cannons, Park added. The beauty of the hybrid design is that it doesn't favor either species' combat philosophy. It creates something new. Sarah watched the exchange with growing optimism. The technical challenges were enormous, but both species' engineers seemed to thrive on solving impossible problems. It was the human and military officers who were struggling with integration. Commander, a voice called from across the room. Sarah turned to see approaching, his expression troubled. May I speak with you privately? They stepped into a smaller side chamber that had been converted into a human-compatible workspace. Activated a privacy screen before speaking. There are problems, he said without preamble. What kind of problems? Cultural ones, political ones, the kind that could destroy this alliance before it truly begins. moved to a holographic display showing the current fleet positions. Many officers see this partnership as temporary. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. Temporary how? They believe that once the Devourer threat is eliminated, the natural order will reassert itself, that the hegemony will resume its expansion, starting with Earth. And you think they're wrong? Amber's eyes met hers. I think they fundamentally misunderstand what humanity has become. This isn't the same species that was fighting scattered defensive actions 6 months ago. Your people have transformed themselves into something unprecedented. Sarah nodded slowly. She'd seen the same thing in Admiral Martinez's briefings, in the orbital installations around Earth. In the casual way, human engineers discussed technologies that should have been impossible. There's something else, continued. Intelligence reports suggest that not all commanders have accepted Fleet Admiral or's alliance. There are ships moving in the outer sectors, positioning themselves for contingencies.